Hey there, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Managing Partners Podcast. I'm Kevin Daisey, and I'll be your host. Today, I got a really cool guest coming out of Denver, Colorado, David Crum. Welcome to the show.
Kevin, thank you for having me. This really is the highlight of my week, and I'm not just sucking up. I love talking about this kind of stuff.
Extra credit. This is for me. I record sometimes a few times a week, but sometimes just once a week. So yeah, I look forward to doing this as much as I can. I haven't gotten these kind of conversations. I love business. I love growing my business, and then of course, getting to talk with folks like yourself about how you're growing your business, and obviously specifically law firms. And just hoping that anyone that listens in can pick up some tips, tricks, know what you're up to, what you're doing, and see if they can apply that to their law firm. So just always trying to bring great guests. If you're listening in, you think you're a good guest, reach out, and we'll try to get you connected. So, well, David, let's jump into it. Learn more about you, what you're up to. Tell us your story. How'd you get to be where you are? Why'd you become an attorney?
Oh, geez. Yeah, I'm going to keep this short because there's a lot to talk about. And the last thing you want to hear about is me. But I started, I've never had a real legal job because I came out of law school and started to practice. I was 26 years old. This is all I've ever done. I started in New Mexico, like most people do, built a local practice, eventually leveraged myself out of the practice. And then I had decisions to make about what I wanted to do with my career. And people wanted me to coach. I didn't really want to do that. So instead of coaching, I just took the principles that I would have coached and opened up additional practices. Started in Nebraska because that's where I grew up. So that's your affinity market right there. I knew those people. I knew where to go, how to talk to them. Once that took off, then we set our sights on bigger markets and cooler markets, and ended up in Denver. So right now we've got practices in New Mexico, Nebraska, and Colorado, and we've got about 6 or 7 locations total. We're in Lincoln in Nebraska. We're in Colorado Springs, Grand Junction, Colorado, Las Cruces, New Mexico. We've got about 86 employees and about 35 attorneys on the team.
Excellent. Thank you for all those details. Well, that's amazing. That's awesome, especially for like divorce, family law, specifically. That's a good size. It's good size practice. So,
yeah.
Everyone listening, if you're watching, you can see the bottom of the screen. If you're listening, it's ColoradoLegalGroup.com. If you want to check out David and his firm, he's got other domains. But he said this one was a decent one to check out and start with. ColoradoLegalGroup.com. I think you also have NewMexicoLegalGroup.com if someone wants to check that out.
NebraskaLegalGroup.com, yeah. And there's
I like the consistency there.
Yeah, this is the easiest way. And as you and I talked about, I love it when attorneys reach out to me. So I've really, met so many people from doing podcasts, and some people I actually end up having business relationships. I'm doing a mediation site with an attorney I met on here, and I'm always happy to talk to anybody with any questions, especially in my niche practice. So,
yeah, absolutely. And I encourage that with everyone. If you want to reach out to an attorney that's been on here, if you see this on LinkedIn Live or comment and you want to connect with someone, let me know. I'll make sure that connection's made. So definitely want to have those referral partners connected and things like that too. So, and I think we have this goes out to a list of like 3,000 plus attorneys on our email newsletter. So, again, if you need a connection, you can message me like LinkedIn. I'll figure out how to connect you with David or anyone else that's been on the show. So I appreciate that. So tell me more about, we talked a little bit backstage, what you're doing with your firm. So you have the multiple offices in different states. What's really been the big thing for you that's been successful? We talked about, you mentioned acquisition and some of the things, but what's some of the things that attorneys that may be listening and say, "Oh, I've never done that or never thought about that," and what are some of those things that you've seen that are kind of aha moments for you?
One of the things I think that is important that not a lot of people talk about is growth mindset. And if that's a cool topic, we can talk about that a little bit.
Absolutely.
Because what happens, I talk to a lot of attorneys that want to do what I do, and then the minute they get into what that entails, they kind of run away from that. The truth of the matter is that growing a law practice is really 90% mental, 10% mental. It's all mental. There's never a good time for it. And so, if you really want to drive your growth, you've got to be in really close contact with your own data. And I think that's the thing that's really revolutionized for us. We know exactly how many leads we're going to get, how many of those we're going to convert, how many we need, and that allows us to grow forward. And you got to understand that sometimes you're going to take a step backwards or 2 steps backward to go 10 steps forward. So you might have a little bit of impact on your cash flow, and you got to be willing to bear that. And so, that's one way to do it. The other thing that you and I talked about earlier that no one is really doing is growth by acquisition. We just did this last month in Colorado. We were hiring an attorney who was living in a smaller town and was going to come down and manage in Colorado Springs. She had an active practice. We evaluated the market, and the problem was she just didn't really have the right skill sets to grow the practice. So we said, why don't we just buy that practice? We'll keep that open. You can manage the other one, and we'll grow this one. That's when you can do it right. It's instant attorneys, instant infrastructure. She had a great reputation. So people should not be overlooking growth by acquisition.
That's interesting. Okay, well, I'm going to tie those 2 things together a little bit. So growth mindset. I think the biggest thing I see, and this is hard, it's hard for anyone, especially depending on where you are. You get a little success, and you get comfortable, and you're like, even though you're like, I want to crush it. I want to take over the world. I want to make $100 million. And then you make 10 grand a month or 20 grand a month or whatever it is that you personally feel like, oh, this is plenty. And then you back off, and you might go say again, oh, I want to crush it. I'm going to do it until you kind of get there again. And you're like, I'm good. And so you don't continue to do the things. You don't really want what you're saying you want. You don't really want the success or the money that you say you do. And so it's easy to back off. You get comfortable, you have kids, you do other, things start to happen in your life, and you're not really trying to get where you said you were. So it's hard to apply those things over and over again and really have that mindset. If you have the passion and you really want those things, you'll move mountains for it, right? So,
well, I mean, I agree with that 100%, but I would like your listeners to think of it in a different way. Growth is not an option like people think that it is. I heard someone say quite a while ago, if you're not growing, you're dying. And what I mean by that is, yes, you can grow yourself to a very comfortable practice, but the problem is if you become complacent, that's ultimately going to be the death knell of your law practice, because your attorneys don't want that. They want to make more money. They want to go forward. They want to be an owner. You have got to keep moving your practice forward, even if you don't want to. And I think that's a hard lesson for people to learn. But I've seen many, many firms, 5 or 6 attorneys, they don't pay attention to what the needs of their really high billing, talented attorneys need. And they turn around one day and they're down to 2 attorneys, 1 attorney. It can be an existential threat. So yes, it's great if you're passionate about it, but you've got to have some growth plan, or you could be in danger of losing your entire practice.
100%. And I think, like kind of what you said there, if you look at my vision for my company, it even mentions like a monetary goal, like we want to be at 100 million by 2030. And that's kind of our plan, but it ties to, we want to create unlimited opportunities here. Well, my team, my staff, someone I hired this year or last month, how are they going to see where they're going if we're not growing? And how are they going to be in a C-level position or even have a C-level at all? Because if you don't grow, you're not going to have, like a law firm, it's not going to have a COO and a CEO and all those things unless you've really taken to the next level. So your team needs to know that you're going places and you're going to bring them along for the ride, and that they see growth opportunities for them. And so yeah, you got to think about everybody, your family, their families, your clients, everybody, right? So you
Yeah,
got to keep going.
I would be, say it in a way that it's almost like you have to market to your own team. You have to send messages to your team about where you're going with your leadership. And many attorneys we've recruited away from other law firms, this is their mantra. There's no transparency. They don't know where they're going. And I'm telling you, it's one of the biggest risks you run as a managing partner.
And if people believe in your mission and your goals, they're going to help you attain them. So they're going to help you get to those goals. And you need to have that wired in through everybody. Hey, this is where we're going. This is where we're going. You're helping us go there. And they can actually get behind that and say, okay, let's push. And the leaders will rise up, and then you can promote them to run different offices, or in our case, different agencies and things like that.
Right.
So, but you're constantly creating that. And the person that doesn't fit stands out like a sore thumb real quick. They're not pulling their weight, not working extra, they're not doing hard, and then everyone goes, "Hey, what about this person's not a fit here?" And so and it's not always just money too, right? They might want leadership, opportunities. They might want to travel, they want to move, whatever it may be. If you got that much going on, they can fit into any of that stuff. So.
Yeah, and I would tell people that they don't need to box themselves in with this normal, conceived structure about how a firm should be structured. You don't have to make someone a partner. One of the big things we do is we pay people like partners. So yes, we're not giving equity. We're not in a position in some of these locations to do an equity kind of play, but they have compensation directly tied to revenue. So they get paid like a partner. And that really makes a big difference. And then it's kind of like what you talked about. If you can align what they're looking for more directly with their position, you're going to get a lot more satisfied, and you're going to have a lot more longevity with your attorneys.
Yeah, and right now what we've done, and this is a known thing, our John Robbins, How to Manage, he mentions this. A lot of other people, it's not like a new thing, but having a conversation with your team members about their personal, professional, and financial goals, and then noting that down. And so every year you go, hey, you said you wanted to hit these goals. How can we help you get to those goals? Are we paying, what kind of pay do you want to be at in 5 years, 3 years, 1 year? What do you want leadership? Do you not want leadership? And kind of have those conversations to say, if we're going to hit our goals, we can help you hit your goals, and then everybody's happy. So
you don't run a law practice, so you run your company like a normal company does. A law firm is no different than any other business, and people have to disabuse themselves of that. It's no different than selling widgets, and you do these. I'm glad to hear you guys are doing these kind of personal development components on your team, because it is just unfathomable how important that is.
With business, it's easy to get wrapped up in the business, and you're just doing the work, and all these things go to the side. They just never happen. And I think everyone's always looking for the secret and blah blah. And the secret that I've found is, and I've paid lots of money, hundreds of thousands, probably $1 million, on consultants and training and all kinds of crap. Just like, what's the secret to all this stuff? And the reality is, there's a whole list of crap that you need to do, and you got to do all of it. And you have to keep pushing and doing the right things. But there's a lot of things you have to do. So there's not like one thing that's going to just solve it all for you.
Yeah. Having you on the call as a marketer is great. I mean, we've got to talk about marketing, but
yes, we do.
I want to talk about a little bit about talent, because that seems to be the biggest challenge right now in running and growing law practices. I think every industry is getting hit. Divorce is getting hit really hard by this. And so, the idea of how you recruit people, how you retain people is becoming increasingly important. And one of the things that we've learned that I'd like to share is we've given up on, I shouldn't say given up, but we don't focus on motivating our employees. Rather, we look for internally motivated employees. And so that's what we're looking for. When I'm doing now interviews with attorneys, I want to know a lot about their upbringing, how they got to be where they're going to be. And what I'm looking for is not their answer of like, why are you do you have grit? Why are you smart? Whatever. I'm looking at what they've done, not what they say. You know, an example of this, I was contemplating hiring a young woman as an attorney. She told me her story, and she was driving 2 hours each way on a commute every day to go to night school to get her law degree while raising kids. And I'm like, okay, that person has what it takes to get through this and to do what's necessary. And it's nothing she told me, it's what she's demonstrated. And we have found that to be one of the best indicators of whether that person is going to do a good job on your team.
I love that. I think that makes a lot of sense. And yeah, you were mentioning, some of that backstage about retaining these attorneys and especially with the divorce side right now, with how, like you said, kind of like the impacts of kind of like the like COVID and stuff like that, and kind of what you're dealing with there. So touch on that a little bit in your space, and what the impacts you're seeing right now, and then we'll get into some marketing.
I'd love to hear what other attorneys have to say about this. We all went through the pandemic, but I honestly, for us, we have more fallout post-pandemic than we did during the pandemic. During the pandemic, divorce practices, we didn't have to close. I mean, we had to make the pivot to, working remotely, but we were never closed down. We were essential services. And I feel like the attorneys kind of hunkered down to the best of their ability and got through it. And now we're coming out the back end and everybody's just out of gas. We've had turnover, which we never have. And it's mostly because attorneys are completely stressed out. And they're looking for a way out. So I call 2023 the year of divorce attorneys becoming estate planning attorneys, because that's what everybody's doing, because they think it's a less stressful. And I'll give you that. It is less stressful. But, there's got to be a better way to do that. So we're paying a lot more attention to the psychological and emotional well-being of our attorneys, even if that's just sitting down and saying, how you doing? How you feeling? What seems harder than it should, those kind of questions. And they won't tell you that. They're not going to offer, if you say, how you doing? Yeah. They'll say, Kevin, I'm doing great. And they're not. You got to ask questions like, Kevin, what feels harder than it should be? What's keeping you up at night? What do you worry about? You've got to ask questions that make them answer so you can get into it. And unfortunately, it's been pretty hard to watch. The younger attorneys are getting really hit hard by this. They're coming out of, many of them have never even been in court. They've had trials online and all that. They're coming into the real world, and it is super stressful. So we're paying attention to that now in a way that we never have in the past.
Well, that's interesting. I'd like, investigate that more myself and hear from others as well. So if you're seeing this now, you comment, about that. If you have the same experience or you're seeing that in your practice, or if you're a divorce attorney and you're seeing that yourself. I think one of the things, and what you just said was perfect, because we do one-on-ones with our employees every week.
You have to.
So if it's a manager, it won't be me; it'll be someone else. But when we first started doing it, probably 4 or 5 years ago, we kind of saw that they're just it's just, hey, David, how's it going? Good. And you start talking about work. So anyway, let's talk about this project. And so we had to restructure the questions and say, exactly what you just said. Hey, no, seriously, what are you doing at home? What's going on? And, what's cool things that you've been up to? Like, you have to start having tell me real stuff. And yeah, hey, I saw you look tired more than usual. Is there anything, you got to kind of dig deeper. Because if you just say, how are you doing? It's almost like an automatic response. Like,
yeah.
Oh, great. Perfect. I know business owners that say that every time, and they're struggling like crazy in their businesses. They just always say, yep, everything's good.
Well, I think that's because that question is meant to just be almost a rhetorical question in daily life. If you say anything else than, hey, I'm doing good, people kind of think you're an ass, so it's like,
yeah. And you don't want to be the Debbie Downer.
Right,
right. It's not great. Or that person that's always having a bad day. But, so I think, people are just wired to say, good, well, great. So yeah, you got to dig deeper and find out what's really going on. And so I think that's important to not just do one-on-ones. That's definitely a good thing for your business. If you don't know that, have one-on-ones, but then you have to do it the right way and have a structure for it that makes sense too. So
yeah,
good stuff. Cool. Well, let's talk about kind of what you're going on. So you have all these different markets, different websites, you're growing different firms, you're acquiring other ones, which I think that's a beautiful idea, to think about acquiring someone that's got a position in a place that has a reputation, that knows people there. They just don't want to run a business. Perfect acquisition to make. And I'm sure there's plenty of opportunities in a lot of little pockets in these small areas. So I think that's a genius plan. What are you all doing that's working for marketing? How are you generating these leads? You said you have all the metrics and the data. You can predict kind of what you're going to bring in. So let's share a little bit with some of these other firm owners what you're doing.
Yeah, and when I do this, I like to kind of share the actual nuts and bolts and some of the numbers from a practical standpoint, so people can actually use this stuff. We're generally relying on 3 pillars, which is pay-per-click advertising, primarily on Google, social media, and SEO. And we do some other stuff, but that's where the big spends are. We probably spend the most on PPC. So to give your listeners an idea, because a lot of people say, well, how do we know how much to spend? What's the spend? I can tell you it varies, of course. And direct to consumer stuff like divorce, bankruptcy, I think you're going to spend more. PI is probably going to spend the most. Last year we spent about 7% of our gross on marketing. And we gross about $11 million a year. So it's not, inconsequential. We have over $1 million marketing budget, but that's what we're finding. PPC for me is still the quickest way to clients. But it is fraught with peril. So you've got to find somebody that does. Do you guys do PPC stuff?
We do PPC. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So you know what I'm talking about. I mean, you can.
I understand exactly what you're talking about. It's
you
kind
can
of like
thousands of dollars of marketing with no clients if you got some idiot running your PPC. So PPC, quickest way. SEO is a great investment, and it's still a great investment, and especially depending on where you are in the market. And that's all, like you said, technical and content driven. And then social media is a bit harder of a nut to crack. I don't think social media is going to blow you up the way people think it will, but it's definitely a channel with positive ROI that can have lasting effects, And so those are really our 3 things, but we are just merciless when it comes to data. So no matter how sexy the idea is, if it doesn't convert, we kill it immediately. And that can be hard to do because you feel really smart until your idea doesn't work.
Yeah, well, that's why I'm always big on talking about strategy. Like, it's having a strategy, and so a lot of places, a lot of agencies, a lot of law firms, like, I just want to get some of this, some of that, a little bit of everything. And a lot of agencies will just be like, yeah, I can sell you PPC and blah 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 blah. But what's the strategy? What's the point? What's the goals? What are we expecting? Where are they now? And to even figure out what makes sense for them. And so PPC, yeah, it's got issues. You can drive a lot of traffic and spend a lot of money. You can get a lot of low-level crap real quick. And Google will take your money and spend it if you don't know what you're doing. So if you don't have someone that's well-versed and up to speed, you can just blow all your money. And then you might have an intake problem too. Tons of calls. They're not a fit. You're hiring extra intake people. I've had clients that have had those problems in the past. So I think it's having the right strategy to have the right mix of those things, because we might have a client that's like, Kevin, I need calls now, today. Like, we've lost $1 million in revenue this past 12 months. I'm going to have to let people go. Like, we need help now. Okay. Well, I wouldn't say, well, all right, we're going to go long SEO routes, start writing content.
Yes.
And build a new site and all this stuff. Like, they need PPC. retargeting ads. And we have to have a strategy that's going to get their phone ringing while allowing us to hopefully start to invest in the long term to get their foundation back in place. Usually they've lost SEO is why they have this suffering, because they were there. They Google allowed them to rank, and then they rest on their laurels and they go, holy crap, what happened? Our phone stopped ringing. Well, Google rolled out an update, and your spammy crap content or your old website isn't going to cut it anymore. And now you're scrambling to try to come back from that. And so that's what we see usually as a problem. And so now PPC is the only way they can rely on, or the only thing they can rely on.
Yeah, I agree with
a drug. They can't get off it. Oh, it's making the phone ring. And then they can't spend more. And they never invest in the other things. So
yeah. It might be interesting to talk about what we both think are the critical components of each step of that. So, if you're running an ad campaign, I'm sure you've seen this on paid search, you got to be sending that traffic to a custom landing page for various reasons. It's going to convert way higher. You line up the messaging and you can track it. It's an absolute must. You cannot be do any digital marketing without that, right? Then where are you going to send the leads? So I can save the listeners a ton of time and heartache by saying we researched all matter management software. We found Clio to be the best, most effective, most integrated for marketing. And then we use another program that integrates with that called Lawmatics, and that actually manages our leads. And we think so highly of these two products that we've actually been on podcasts for Clio and for Lawmatics talking about how we use them. So I think those are essential. Do you have any thoughts on from, where you're sending leads to how you're integrating into your practice?
Yeah, absolutely. So to back you up on what you said, so if we're going to do any, let's say PPC ads, Google ads, for one, if anyone's listening, you have a budget. Say you're going to spend $1,000 a month. We'll just make that up. Well, how your ad is written and the copy and the keywords and targeting, you'll get an ad score, right? And then where you're sending that, the click, right, is going to go to a page. A lot of people send them to their homepage or a practice area page or whatever, which has got all kinds of other opportunities for them to go somewhere else. And you're going to get a landing page score. So if I have an ad that's for divorce attorney Denver, and I send them to a landing page that's a homepage for a law firm that's, hey, we do divorce, we also do criminal, and also do, it's not specific. So Google gives you a score and goes, okay, this landing page is not very specific. It's slow, it's big. And so the lower your scores, the more you pay per click, which means your budget just got diminished and you can't compete with the other folks. So you have to send them to a very specific landing page. And if you have like 1,000 ads, have 1,000 landing pages if you have to. Like they should be very specific to the ad itself and the keyword they search. Not even if it's like divorce versus family law, there should be totally different landing pages.
Yeah.
So,
and
100%.
It's simply an auction, and you have to bid less to get the keyword than your competitor if you've got better experience.
Yeah, so you want to look at your ad quality and your landing page quality, get those as high as you possibly can, and that's going to give you the best chance. And then sending them, yes, how you're going to convert them, whether there's a form, use CallRail for phone call tracking.
Yep.
And then get them right into your CRM or system that you're using for your practice. Clio, nothing but good things. And Lawmatics, we have clients that use those too.
Yeah.
Those two are probably the most, the prevalent that I hear about. So,
and attorneys need to know that when you talked about call tracking, CallRail, which is what we use as well, those parameters need to be set up in CallRail, because you don't want to count a lead if we set it, I think it's 2 minutes is what we set the call at to qualify as a lead, because
excellent.
A lot of people just call it's the wrong thing, and they could be calling on a bad ad, or you're getting the wrong traffic and you're like, oh, we have all these leads, but you don't. Those are hangups or 20-second phone calls. So that's important. So
spam.
Kevin, once they come in, once they come in to the pipeline, then you've got to have a team that is handling those cases, whether it's replying to a form that's coming in or calling immediately. I'll give a tip right now. You better have texting capability because nobody answers their phone anymore. So we have automations in our marketing that if we call and they don't answer, then they automatically get moved and it fires off not only an email, but a text because we require their phone number. And so we're able to get in touch with people by texting. It's just insane. If you would have told me that you'd be texting clients 10 years ago, 20 years, I would have thought you were insane. But that's the reality of it.
No, yeah. So just getting the contact that costs you a bunch of money, right? You set all the ads up, you're spending money, you got the landing pages. And then what happens after it comes in? And I think that's one of the things that we check in for clients. Like I've called a client just to check in to get back in touch with them for something. Say I'm like calling you, and I get the worst like phone tree, and like I can hear 1,000 people at a call center that you know is not the law firm, and I'm like, hey, we're about to start marketing for you, and that was terrible. Like I would not hire you for anything, and you need to fix that like right away. And so not just looking at what the marketing companies might be, if you're an agency, right, or a marketer, you owe it to the client to shop them, to go, what's the experience like? Because I can send David 1,000 leads today and he dropped the ball on all of them. He is not going to look at me and say, I've done a good job. So you have to tighten up that process. You have to get folks, and if you're small, I just had, the episode will be live before this one, but Jill's is like a call center. That's all they do is for attorneys. And if you can't afford to hire all the folks in place, there's all kinds of options out there to get instant phone pickups from people that are professional that will even convert it for you if you need to, at least to the next step.
Yeah.
And track that information. But you gotta have the tight process for this 100%.
Yeah. Well, since we can't do a Joe Rogan style podcast, I'm going to there's a lot we could talk about, but I'm going to share some just unusual things that we've discovered in parsing through the data. We've looked at sites, we've looked at other firm sites as well. And well, let me back up. So there's a couple major mistakes that we see people making, and that is, not doing paid consults, doing free consults, and they'll argue and argue and argue. And the data is the data. When you do a free consult, you're going to convert about 25% of your leads if you're lucky. We do paid consults in all of our locations. It's a 1 hour. It's usually around $275. And we're going to convert pretty close to 60% of those. So do the math. A lot of people are drowning themselves in free consults. It's just a bad idea. The other thing where people are making mistakes, I agree and I disagree with this advice. You'll hear a lot of marketers say, hey, Kevin, this doesn't need to be fancy. Just pull out your iPhone, shoot a video, and you're good to go. Okay. Sometimes that's okay. Right. But if you've got a marketing video that's shitty, or you've got a terrible photograph of yourself up, I'll give you an example. We looked at ad campaign that was running for a firm that had they had a terrible, just a not well done photograph. And you looked at that versus if you tested it against an ad with no photograph. Well, the no photograph ad vastly outperformed the ad with a bad photo. And same thing with video. So if you're using a landing page video, it better be professional looking and it better sound professional, because you will lose clients by doing that. So, hey, you want to get all over Instagram and put whatever you want to put on there.
Yeah, YouTube, if you want to go on YouTube and just record a little, any kind of personal content, like, hey, this is Kevin, I'm here talking about this, or hey, this is David, I want to come talk about, a divorce tip. That's totally cool, but not a landing page.
Yeah. My wife runs a retail business on Instagram, and she just picks up her phone, shoots the video, puts a caption, and she's done dealing, right? It's like a 2-minute deal. And that works great. It's just not something we can do. So there's a time and place.
You're paying for that click. You got to do whatever you can to get them to take action. What do you want them to do when they're there?
Yeah.
And that should only be to fill out this form or call or whatever, or if you have a chat, whatever it may be. Focus on that one thing you want them to do.
Yeah. And you gotta maximize it. The other thing that I would say where I see a big misunderstanding about customer behavior, and this is when people come in and they do a consult with you or they do it over Zoom or whatever, but you're not hired immediately. All right. So a lot of attorneys just think, okay, well, that person met with me. They must not have liked me and they're not going to pick me. That is absolutely not true. What most people are doing is simply putting off the hiring decision. So another must, we talked about having a landing page as a must. Another must is a follow-up process for clients who meet with you and they don't hire you. The way we do it, as soon as they walk out, if they don't hire us, they get an email from me that says, thank you for the consult and my special offer. And what that says is I bill at $495 an hour. I will answer any question you have about that lawyer, the process, anything you didn't understand for free. And when we get those, we don't get a lot of people that take me up, but when they do, we answer them. And it's almost 100% higher after that. And then we've had people, 30 days, 6 months, a year, coming back to us and hiring from that original consult. We don't stay in front of them for a year, but we stay in front of them for a long time with value add communications that are not pitchy. It's got a little call to action at the bottom, and it's a must. You must do that.
No, that's amazing. Yeah. So that's a good point. Is bringing it kind of, full circle. Again, you paid for them to come there or whatever. If it was SEO, you paid for that to happen, right? So you get the lead, you get the click, you get them to fill out a form or call, and then you meet with them. And then, so you can't stop there. You got to have the follow-up. You have to have some systems in place, whether it's a phone call, email, mix it up. I use HubSpot and have workflows. And so we hit them for probably a year, actually. And if not, we move them to like a free content email that we send out, and it's just marketing tips and information. And, you don't know when they're ready. They might not have been ready when they talk to you, especially in divorce, right? People take a long time to maybe go, okay, I'm finally going to take the next step and do this.
I'd say it's even more crucial to have a follow-up sequence for social media intake, because social media is more top of funnel. And what we mean when we say that is they're just at the very top of the decision making, right? The opposite of that is PPC, where they're usually a hot client ready to hire somebody. But you got to be all over the funnel, top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, and bottom of the funnel.
Yeah, and sometimes they're gonna, they might be down in the middle, and then they're back up at the top, and you're trying to get them and hit them that way. Yeah, so exactly what you're saying is, SEO and PPC, they're closer to the bottom. Your website is like the tip of the spear in this case, because if they search divorce attorney Denver, the intent of that search, and that's something that we focus on almost exclusively here, is intent. I want to get David high intent searchers that want to hit, so they either click on Google ad or they click on organic, right? Yeah. But they weren't searching for how do I become a divorce attorney, and you show up. You don't want that, right? They have that's not something that you want. Right. And so high intent, they're in the buying phase. On social media, you're just, you're trying to get out to people that maybe done a search, or they're married. You're just very high funnel stuff.
Our experience is that some of these marketing channels are not playing as nice as they used to. So Facebook is making it harder to see your data. It's making it harder for you to target people. They have big objections to targeting certain things happening in people's lives, like divorce. That's been challenging. I'm sure you saw the Google algorithm update recently that just is all over the place. I got on there a couple weeks ago, and there was one paid search result on the search. There was all this other crap that was at the bottom. I mean, it's just been a nightmare. So we're kind of working through that post, algorithm update. But
I got an article I'll share with you. I just shared it with my team last week. Cost PPC cost up, leads down. So Google's taking your money,
Yep.
more of it than usual, and the leads are down, conversions are down. So, and that's across the board. And we have some clients right now. They're like, "Hey, I can't see my ads, and why can't I see my ads as much?" And obviously, there's a lot of reasons for that, but sometimes you can't see your own ads. It depends on where you're searching from, but we have seen some odd things happening. So we're constantly trying to figure out what's happening with that. I'll share an article with you after this, and I'll put it in the comments once this comes out live. But
yeah,
there's definitely some things you can't just think the way things work now are going to be the way they work next week or next year. So if you're crushing it on Facebook ads today, like that can't be what gets you, so it's not going to crush it for you forever. So you have to be willing to take in new data and pivot if you need to. So
yeah, it's wild when you look at the revenue generated by Google ad, PPC. To think that they have to be greedier than that is pretty shocking, but that's what they're doing, man. I mean, we just got off looking at a market off a meeting that said we spent 7% more this year than last year, and our leads are less. Like we're getting less leads, we're getting less impression share. So they're playing a lot of games, and you got to be ready for it. And putting everything in one basket, it can be super dangerous.
Yeah, absolutely. And we know with Google and AI and all this other stuff, Google's going to be changing kind of how Google looks, and we play in the SEO space. That they could change how the results show up or what it looks like, and just destroy a lot of that. So
we'll talk about it, Kevin.
You got to be willing to pivot.
Too much anxiety.
Yeah, I know, right? So yeah. Well, David, I mean, you shared a ton. Obviously, you have a lot of insight and knowledge. You're growing an awesome firm. You're running it like a business. So just a ton of good things here. We definitely see eye to eye and follow a lot of the same philosophies. But hopefully, everyone can learn a lot from what you've had to share here already. We could probably just talk all day, I'm sure. Maybe we jump on again and talk about some different topics too. But anything else you'd like to cover with the audience today?
I'm trying to think. I always like to leave people with a good gem, but
what's a good? Give us a good takeaway.
Now you're going to put me on the spot. I'll share just a couple of tools I think that have been transformative for us. So, guys, if you're getting to the size where you're starting to struggle with your admin, your benefits and human relations stuff, a wonderful platform is Bamboo HR. It is probably the best value add software we're using, and it allows us to manage. It is a phenomenal piece of software. So check that out. We switched over that a few years ago, and it really helps for the smooth operations, from an operational standpoint. So I know that's not the sexiest thing in the world, but man, it is.
HR. I'll add to that. Is another option. We used to have. We have an internal bookkeeper. We had CPA, and then we had like a benefits person, and then we had our health insurance person, and it was all over the place. And we have our attorneys and all that stuff. So we switched to Insperity. So Insperity is like national, big, huge company. They do our payroll, our benefits, health insurance, retirement plans, everything in one portal, payroll, seamless. And now we just have a financial administrator. And of course, we still have our CPAs and stuff like that. But it took a lot of things that we kind of had all over the place and just put them in one place, and they completely cover you for everything. So we have employees in like 10 states, right? So they take care of all that compliance, all the crap that we didn't really understand. So that's another good one. So Bamboo, Insperity, whichever one makes more sense for you, but that's my recommendation too. So
well, Kevin, thank you so much, and I'm going to take a look for the links you're going to post, and this has been awesome, man, and hopefully we can do it again.
No, yeah, it sounds like we got a lot more we can cover. Always trying to bring value to to the listeners. So if I can bring value, I'll bring people back and have other conversations. So I appreciate your insight, and congrats on your success so far. But of course, you got the right mindset, so you're not stopping yet.
Yeah. Thanks, Kevin.
All right, cool. Well, hang on with me. We'll chat real quick backstage. Everyone else, if you're live on the video, the link down below that's scrolling by the bottom, you can go to arraydigital.com, or This Is Array, the podcast. We have, I think, 250, almost 260 live episodes. We have a bunch in the hopper. So managing partners from every state and every practice area, if you're looking for that specific type of content, and experts too. So we've had Ben Glass, Ken Hardison, you name it. So we're looking to bring other experts in from industry as well. And so not just attorneys, but, I just had the call center folks that came on to share about how they help attorneys. So anything you want to see, new content or guests that you recommend, or if you think you'd be a good guest, please reach out. You can find me on LinkedIn and I'll respond to you. David, they can connect with you on LinkedIn as well. I think that's where we chatted. But you can check out coloradolegalgroup.com, or David, you're just David Crum on LinkedIn.
On LinkedIn, I think it's David Crum ESQ. Yeah, there's only me and some other dude who's like a House of Representatives named David Crum.
Okay, don't talk to that guy.
Yeah, don't talk about that guy. But yeah, and I'm sincere when I say this. This is one of the things I enjoy most about being involved in this industry, meeting with other people. I love being in mastermind groups and just chatting with people. Even if they have a question for me, I usually learn something from them when we talk about it. So don't hesitate to reach out.
100%. That's why I do this, right? I get to learn and add to it if I can. So
absolutely.
Cool. David, well, thank you so much for joining me. Everyone else, have a great day. Get out there, get that mindset right, and go crush it and grow your law firm. It's your duty and obligation. We'll see you soon.